Hello, students, and hello, world. Welcome to our Go Talk to English podcast. And today we have the most beautiful and most interesting online personality. We have Miss Alison Bucklin.
Thank you so much for having me. I am grateful to be here. I'm grateful that we became connected and that we were led together to share this information with your listeners. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
That's so nice of you, ma'am. And can you tell us more about yourself and um, where you're from so
Yeah,
people would be able
absolutely.
to know you better?
Yes. Okay. So my name is Allison Bucklin. I live in Baltimore, Maryland, USA. I've lived here my whole life. I am a mother to a beautiful miracle daughter. Her name is Evelyn, and she's 7. I've been married for 16 years. And
Wow.
yes, I am passionate about living my values and utilizing my strengths to gift individuals and the world with tools to empower them to live healthier, happier, more inspired lives so that we can make a difference, not just for ourselves, which I know we'll be talking about, but for others as well.
Hmm. Wow, that's just so beautiful. And I'd like to call you as a life coach because based on your background and your passion in life, you don't just influence people, but you tend to share your experiences and use that to coach them and prevent those past, let's call it as mistakes, as a lesson for them and to
Absolutely. Yeah.
encourage
I,
them.
I love to coach people into the healthy whole life they'll love, mind, body, spirit, and definitely a community giver and contribution and health are my top values. So
Mhm.
that's what I like to go by. But so yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, so guys, our today's topic is all about managing your mental health. I work as an operations manager in the retail industry, and I realized that, oh, I've been strong for quite a long time. And sometimes I even tend to disregard my own feelings because I want to take care of my people first. So it's always people first, um, the welfare of the majority, and sometimes I tend to neglect myself. I just realized that unconsciously I neglected myself. So yeah, this is such a very important topic for me because as a manager I would also like to help all those managers who may not be aware that they're also neglecting their own feelings, and as a result they
Yeah.
tend to be rude to their employees, or sometimes they just burst in anger out of
Yeah,
nowhere.
because they right. I mean, and not being aware, and it comes full circle. I agree. I mean, whether you're a manager or a parent, or I
Yes,
mean, it's like or with any relationship. I mean,
I agree.
it's all based on how we the more we learn about ourselves and then how we can then interact with others and build relationship, because whether it's a manager employee relationship, a parent or a child relationship, a peer to peer relationship, our what we learn internally, if based on our beliefs and our thoughts and the messages that we've received, shapes who we are, and then unconsciously and without knowing it, it goes to work.
Mm-hmm.
That comes out. Sometimes people don't say they say things that they really don't mean or don't think about, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just because that's what they've been taught. And then that's how self-talk, we'll get into that, how that can help. But yeah, as a manager, right, you don't, and even as a parent or as a person, you don't want to feel weak or like
True.
but we have to take care of, we can't pour from an empty cup.
Totally, totally. And you know what? That hurt me hard because at first I was just focusing about this certain position because I just want the discussion focus on the organizational level part. But we all start at home. And That's kind of shame because I forgot that parents too are having these challenges. I realize and I remember how my mom tried to um, forget what she feels just because she wants to put us first at
Yeah,
home,
right. It
at
starts
work.
with us first.
So basically, we're going to talk about how people should manage their mental health, especially those who are managing a certain group or even parents. But mainly, our discussion will be all about the managers who are struggling with their teams and who are also struggling with their mental health. So, could you tell us how managers would be able to take care of their mental health through positive talk or self talk?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you a little bit of background on the topic of positive self talk, how it came into my life to
Mm-hmm.
start, and then relate it to anybody who is in a management position. I mean, whether or not that's in the work that we do, our job title, or as a parent, as you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, or as just in relationships and building relationships. So, my unique experience in my life has shaped who I am today. One of those, in especially in my career and in my personal life, have led me on this journey to where I am. And I was introduced to the concepts of positive self-talk through
Mm-hmm.
an individual. I'm a brand ambassador for a company called Arbonne International, which really introduced me to how to take care of our body health and our skin health.
Mm.
But also in building a business, I also learned, and also leading a team and becoming a leader slash not necessarily manager, but a leader in general.
Mm-hmm.
That in order to do that, it starts with us, and we have to work on
True.
ourselves and grow personally in order to help and affect others' lives. And so I was introduced to positive self talk,
Mm-hmm.
and it changed my life. So it kind of starts like this. I was introduced to a man named Dr. Shad Helmstetter. He has
Mm-hmm.
written several books on the topic of positive self talk, including What to Say When You Talk to Yourself,
Mm-hmm.
365 Days of Positive Self Talk for Finding Your Purpose, also The Power of
Mm.
Neuroplasticity. And I was introduced to his work and really became intrigued and felt called to then become certified and taught by him in order to share this
Mm-hmm.
with the world. And so, as a manager, as a leader, as a parent, as an individual,
Or even
um,
as a teacher, right?
as even as a teacher, exactly, we have to look inside of ourselves, and
Mm-hmm.
we all are a product of the messages that we've received throughout our entire life, the things that we've heard, the things that
Mm-hmm.
we've seen, the things that we've read, the messages that are repeated the most, the
Mm-hmm.
ones that get repeated the most throughout our entire life are the ones that get wired into our brain. Now, here's the thing:
Mm-hmm.
our brain does not know the difference between what is positive and what is negative, what is right,
Oh.
what is wrong, what it serves us or what does not serve us. It does not know the difference. What is repeated the most throughout our life is what gets wired in. And over time, we as individuals, we become our programmer, because if you took a listen to all of the things that you've said to yourself in your mind, the things that you've thought about yourself, we most likely would never talk to someone else the way that we talk to ourselves. So if you,
Yes.
for example, you are a manager, a leader, a teacher, the things that we could say to ourselves are based on what we've heard throughout our entire lives. So I'll give
And
you
it
a
starts with childhood.
it starts with childhood. I mean, you think of a newborn baby who's just born,
Mm-hmm.
and that newborn baby has all, like, I mean, they're born into this world with just a blank slate and looking around
True.
with all that promise that they have in the world. Now, um, let's say this baby, they get their first message, or let's say they, get, whether it's positive or negative, that they
Mm-hmm.
hear around them. Now, that's not going to wire anything into their brain. But over time, let's say you've grown up with a parent who has not thought very highly of themselves, or has told you
Low
no multiple
self-esteem.
times. In low self-esteem, exactly. It's actually been shown that from the ages of 0 to 18, if someone's grown up in a reasonably positive home, they will have heard the word no, not right now, or something that will not work, that they cannot do over oh my gosh, I can't even think of the number now. I think it's 120,000 times, something ridiculous and crazy, like, and
Wow.
70% of what gets wired in, that repetition of those messages, 70%, even more most likely, are not serving us. They're negative, or they're false, or they're not true. They just go to work to serve us, or to not serve us. And so you think of, an example would be, you hear somebody say, I could never remember names. I'm so bad at remembering names. I can never remember names. Well,
oh my, I'm so guilty with that.
You think, right? You're becoming your own programmer, because it's the repetition of saying that or thinking that. And then what happens, through no fault of your own, you meet someone, they tell you their name. It doesn't matter how hard you try, your brain has already had that message. Oh, I don't remember names. I don't remember names. I'm never going to remember her name. So that's one example.
So how do we turn the table into, something positive? So if for example, I really could hardly remember the name. So how do I program my mind positively?
Yeah.
When
the good
when
news
that thing happens.
The good news is that we can change this at any time. Here's the thing. Through no fault of anyone's own, we're all programmed by people who've been programmed by people who've been programmed, right? So there's really, this is actually called neuroplasticity, is actually the science of it, which means that at any time, our brain, we can form new neurons in our brain. So new neural pathways. So how do we change it? Okay, here's how we change it. It's very simple. Starts with self-awareness, okay? The first step is to monitor. I just brought up the example about names, and you're like, I'm guilty of that. Well, the first thing is to monitor. What are we saying out loud? What are we surrounding ourselves with? What are we thinking in our mind? If we cross a mirror, for example, what do we say about ourselves in the mirror?
I'm beautiful.
Right. That's what we should be saying, right? But in most cases, that's not what a lot of people are saying about themselves, if that's how they've been programmed. I know for my example, I didn't really like myself. I'm working on self-confidence and body image, but it was because of the messages that I heard about my parent not liking themselves or speaking poorly about themselves. I internalized that, went to work, ended up with a bunch of disordered eating habits. Now I'm working, because the first step is to monitor, to become self-aware of what we're thinking, what we're exposing ourselves to, what we're saying. That's the first step. The second step then is to edit. We all have the ability to stop ourselves from saying something before we say it, to stop ourselves from continuing on a path of thinking thoughts that don't serve us, to stop ourselves, like to recognize that. But and that's a great step, to say the next time you learn somebody's name, or you think that, you're gonna monitor, and you're gonna be like, oh wait, I just said it again. And you're gonna monitor, and then you're gonna know before it comes out of your mouth the next time, you're gonna be able to stop yourself and edit yourself from saying that again.
Wow. So I should pause.
You should pause, right? And pause and become self-aware. Now, monitoring and editing alone is not going to rewire your brain. Certainly that is going to give you the ability to become more self-aware and recognize the messages that are serving you, the messages that are not serving you. Now, the third step to actually rewiring and reprogramming your brain is to listen to the right positive self-talk messages so that you on repeat, because that's the key, repetition, repetition, repetition. So the Dr. Shad Helmstetter with the Self-Talk Institute, this has been his lifelong work, and he has recorded a lifetime library of positive self-talk messages you can listen to so that you can begin to rewire your brain. Now, these
even if you had sorry for cutting you short. So
no, that's
basically,
okay.
Even if you had a bad childhood, it's not too late to rewire your brain.
It is not too late to rewire your brain. Exactly. Because if you've had a bad childhood, then that's based on the programs that you've received. You know, that's the difference. We're all, I'm a faith-driven woman, and I believe that God does not put any of us on this earth to fail, right? I mean, you look at a rose or a snowflake. I mean, if he can make something as delicate as that, you know, unique, then, you know, whatever your faith, you know, we're all designed to live our greatness. Now, some of us have been in circumstances that we've been born into where we have been literally been wired to fail based on the messages that we've received. We're not worthy, we're not good, you'll never amount to anything, you could never grow up and do this, maybe abuse or neglect or whatever it is. However, at any point, we do have the ability to be able to change and rewire. It starts with monitoring, it starts with then editing, but then also listening to the right messages, feeding ourselves with the right messages. You brought up a great example of you walk by the mirror and you look at yourself and you say, I'm beautiful, I love myself, I am worthy, I am, you know, I'm strong and confident in that. So that's one way, but then also listening to the right positive self-talk messages. And I'll be able to share this with your listeners. I'll share this with you, a link for a lifetime library of pre-recorded positive self-talk messages that you can listen to. Now, here's an example where I've used this. Now, if you are a manager, it starts with you. If you are a leader, if you are a parent, any individual, it starts with us. How can we pour from an empty cup? Especially if we recognize that the messages that we've received are not serving us, the ones that we are thinking are not serving us, then how can we expect to relay something different to those that we manage or those that we lead or our child? Or how can we expect that if we don't recognize it for ourselves? Because in a lot of cases, it's no one's fault. You know, if you've been taught and you are rewiring yourself that you're not a good leader, or I'm not a good person, or I can't feel my feelings, or I'm anxious all the time, you know, and that comes out as anger or anxiety, or, you know, trying to fake ourselves into something that we're not as a leader, then how can we expect that to translate to other people? So it starts with us and filling our cup and, you know, and helping ourselves first, and then we can do that for other people.
So question, if I may. So let's say, for example, you work as a manager, and then unfortunately, all of, or let's just say 10 out of 15 members of your team are very toxic and very fond of negative self-talk, or even have somehow influenced you to do some negative self-talk. So how do you turn the table? How do you make it into a positive experience? Because you don't have a choice but to be with them. Unlike with friends, you could probably choose who you should be with because you have the freedom. But what if they're part of the team? You can't just dish them away, right?
Yeah. Well, here's what I'd say first. Hurt people hurt people. So we all have a story, right? So those individuals, recognizing that if you're managing a team and those individuals are toxic to the team, there's a reason for that. And it's because of what they've experienced and what they've heard. Now, since you can't change the situation, I would say as a manager, it would start with you and recognizing ways that you can improve your own internal dialogue and your own self-talk, so that when you are speaking with these individuals, you can maybe recognize, some of the things that are positive within them, and maybe focus on more of the positive aspects, the strengths, because we all have strengths, and sometimes, and then our stories can tend to, and our life experiences can tend to help make us react in a certain way, shape, or form. We never know what's going home behind closed doors when people go home to their families. So I think it starts with empathy. It starts with having compassion, but also for ourselves. So I would suggest that as a manager, as a leader, is to, recognize ways they can improve themselves, because when we start to improve ourselves, then we can teach and help and find empathy for other people and their situations, to maybe to help them in that aspect. So while it might not be work related that we're helping them, but we are a whole person, work and personal and professional life. I think that's how we can create better cultures and work environments in general.
Now, a lot of people are curious about this, because I'm not sure if we have bumped into this online, but here's what we call as toxic positivity. What are your thoughts about that? Is that really existing, or what can you say about that? Toxic positivity.
I've never heard that. What would you say toxic positivity is?
It's somewhat like imagining things that everything's positive, even if there's really something wrong going on. Or let's say, oh, don't be sad. In fact, you should feel honored. In fact, you should feel fortunate, because some people don't have this, and here you are crying for something that shouldn't be that important. So it's somewhat like shrugging it off, taking your sadness not seriously, things like that. So what can you say about it?
Yeah, I would say it all comes down to emotion. Certainly we can't tell anybody else how to feel. I'm a big fan of the work of Abraham Hicks, or the teachings of Abraham Hicks. And what these teachings talk about is this emotional scale. So telling someone how they can feel, or you shouldn't feel this way, or cheer up, you can have things better, you should be grateful for what you have. I mean, that's projecting our own thoughts and beliefs on someone else, certainly. And I can understand how that can be toxic. However, there's something called the emotional guidance scale, which Abraham Hicks teaches in their work. But it's recognizing where we lie on that scale. If we are fearful, depressed, desperate, powerless, the first step is to actually feel and recognize that's how we feel. Acknowledge how we feel. There is such power in acknowledging how we feel. If we are feeling anger or rage or jealousy or wanting to get back at someone, we're taught that those are bad feelings to feel. But that's again what's been programmed into our mind to believe. We're taught that it's bad to feel anger and jealousy and rage, or however, it's natural.
That's true. That's true.
You do feel it, and you can't just brush it aside.
I usually share that with my students, because I teach English as a second language, and my students are usually speaking in Spanish. We know that all their lives they've been talking or speaking in Spanish, right? And there comes a point wherein my student really cried so hard because she got frustrated. Why until now she's not fluent in English? So I told her, acknowledge that you're sad, acknowledge that you're frustrated, acknowledge that it is normal, because you're just being you. But after you have acknowledged and express your sadness and your frustrations, make sure to get up. That's what I usually advise to my students. Place a certain period when you should be sad, but don't be sad forever or for all your life, because it's just a waste of time. And there's a lot of people loving you, and there's a lot of things that you can still do.
Yes. And you can choose a higher thought. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you don't we can't expect somebody to go from feeling fear and anxiety to feeling joy and
Correct.
right away. Like
We're
you
not
can't,
robots.
we're not, like, you can't just go from there unless you've
Mhm.
crossed over and, like, you're no longer out of this, on this, within this body.
Mm-hmm.
But however, you can, if you are feeling powerless, or if you are feeling worry or doubt, you can then choose a higher thought. You can then maybe go into, okay, if I'm sad now, how can I do something and choose an emotion that, maybe that's anger. Maybe we
Mm-hmm.
go from sadness to anger, but it's a
True.
higher thought. It is a higher emotion, and you can look for the emotional guidance scale and see kind of where that lies within there, and be able to do that. But it's important to feel our feelings as we have them. And as far as toxic positivity, I mean, I think it's individual. Positivity is one of my strengths. And so
Mm-hmm.
I tend to see, have always tended, I've learned that that's one of my strengths. I've always tended to see the glass is half full. However, it does not preclude me from feeling fear or feeling
Mm-hmm.
anxiety or feeling worry or feeling doubt, especially in the climate that we're in nowadays, and
True.
it's okay to feel that, but then to also reach for a higher thought where we can then say, okay, what can I find? Here's an example of what I do every single day that helps me.
Mm-hmm.
Every single morning, I start my day with writing 5 successes from the day before.
Mm.
Because when we acknowledge where we've been successful, because it's so hard, it's easy to beat ourselves up. We're all our own worst enemy and
Correct.
our own worst critic. And it's easy to forget the things that we did that were successful. So I start my day, I write 5 successful things from the day before, whether that's meeting someone, whether that, like, this is going to go on tomorrow,
Yes.
like talking to you,
I
like
was
that, this
about
is
to say that.
but also whether that's for somebody who's depressed, getting out of bed in the morning, or
True.
or folding your laundry and putting it away. That is a success. Like, so
Celebrate
it's
small successes, right?
small successes, but it's 5 successes. But then I also write down 3 things that I'm grateful for in the moment. Different things every day, whether that's feeling joy in the moment, or whether that's, I love nature, or whatever it is. That helps to reprogram our brain as well. The consistency
Mm-hmm.
of creating those habits, those are positive messages that we're repeating, right? And so
True.
it's monitoring, it's editing, but then it's listening to the right self-talk messages, choosing to place them in our lives, whether that's through
Mm-hmm.
affirmations, whether that's through listening to the positive self-talk recordings that I'll
Mm-hmm.
share with you and your listeners, which are for every area of life, from time
Mm-hmm.
management to financial success to, my daughter's 7, I mentioned, and I want to empower her to be confident and to make good choices and to wire her brain from the
Mm-hmm.
beginning with the right messages. So every single night we listen to positive self-talk for girls. And it's all about, I make good choices. I'm growing up great. I have self-confidence. When there is darkness, my values light the way. These different repetition of messages that can enable us, whether we are a manager, a
Mm-hmm.
leader, a parent, an individual. And so I hope that answers your question. We kind
Yes,
of went off on a
absolutely,
little.
absolutely. One last question, because I
Sure.
know you still have a lot of clients lining up for you, and I thank you for your time. So, one last question: how do we manage, like as a parent, how do we manage teaching our kids about positive self-talk, and at the same time, shall we call it, regulating them or preventing them from being self-entitled? Because a
Yeah.
lot of people are confused about that. When you're confident about yourself, oh, that woman is so self-entitled, that woman is so overconfident. So please educate us. on
Yeah,
our
well, I mean, I think that's projecting our own limiting beliefs onto someone else when we assume that they're, you know, entitled, because we don't really know for sure, right? How they are really on the inside, we don't know.
Mhm.
But I think how we can raise more confident kids, first it starts with us and recognizing what are our limiting beliefs, what are the things that are not
Mhm.
serving us in what we do that are then, you know, transferring to others and people. But I also think the self-awareness comes from recognizing our gifts and our strengths and
I
our
love that.
values. I mean, you know, we all have our own unique strengths and our own unique gifts, and it starts as a young person. So often we're told that maybe our gift of competitiveness is wrong, right? Like, let's say a kid has a gift and or a strength of competitiveness. My daughter has this. We
Mhm.
recognized this the other day. But sometimes, like, a parent could be like, oh, don't do that, you don't always have to win, stop gloating, stop, you know, like, or
That's right. I've
we're
heard that a
told
lot with my friends during when we were still kids. So that's kind of sad. I totally agree with
it
that.
is like to like, and we're, but here's the thing, we're all learning, we're all taught by people who are taught by people, this is passed down, but how can we then, you know, break the cycle and raise more confident
Mm-hmm.
kids? It's recognizing their strengths, it's recognizing our own strengths. I know there's a the Clifton Strengths Finder assessment is a great way to
Mm-hmm.
identify our strengths. There's a beautiful book called UMAP. It's written by my friend Kristen Sherry, and it's I can share a link for a UMAP
Everything you
assessment as
share
well.
is so interesting.
It is. I mean, it's all learning. I'm a learning. My unique experiences have shaped who I am, but I then get to share that with other people because, like, as you talk about a life coach, I've learned all these things that helped me. So then I get to help other people and
As
give
part
them
of
the
giving back.
tools, because I know that my strengths are futuristic, includer, positivity, um, uh, and winning others over, and belief. I know those are my strengths, so I'm going to act to my strengths. I know that that's who I am, that's how I'm wired, that's,
Correct.
you know, what's unique to me.
Focus
So
on
I
it,
think,
right?
and I think, correct, I think rather than things that we can change that may aren't not be our strengths, maybe in
Mm-hmm.
your example earlier of the manager that had toxic employees, well, maybe those employees aren't in a role really that is utilizing their strengths. So how can maybe we help them identify their strengths so that they can have more job satisfaction and, you know, work more in line with their values? But it
And
starts
in
with us.
line with that, um, this is one of the most common misconception. If one person is so critical about almost everything, we should utilize that because we can't be overly positive with things going on. In every project, there's going to be pros and cons. So work on it. So let's say, for example, that person only talks about negative things, then probably you could turn around the table by preparing those things that he or she has mentioned. Because that person may be telling the truth and that person may be helping you on how to prepare and make it a more positive experience for the majority.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, yeah, how can we all learn and live better lives just by starting with ourselves and understanding where we can learn and grow, and then continue to help others as well, and live in line. And I need to mention too, my husband is an English as a second language teacher as well, and
Oh,
he's downstairs right now teaching teaching adults English. So we have that in common. I know we were meant to be brought together for a reason, especially to be able to share the work that I'm doing with your listeners and with others.
mhm.
And I appreciate you definitely inviting me on, Melody.
Yes. Well, we don't really have an hour is not enough for us to talk about all these beautiful things. And because of that, I'd like to give the floor for you to invite all our audiences to your, um, projects as well. Go
Oh
ahead.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If anybody would like to connect with me, the best place you can find me on LinkedIn, if your listeners are on LinkedIn, Alison Bucklin, Alison, and Bucklin is my last name, Bucklin. I'm on Facebook. I don't have a website quite yet. It's not designed yet, but I will eventually have AlisonBucklin.com. I'll share with you, Melody, a link to the positive self-talk recordings that your listeners can go to, as well as a link to a UMAP profile so that they can start uncovering their strengths and core values and be able to live more enriching and self-aware and confident lives as leaders, as people, as individuals, as we flourish into 2021 and beyond.
That's true. That's true. Well, it's such a great honor to be with you today. And guys, you have heard her, so visit on those links. And I would also like to invite you guys to visit our own website, which is www.gotalkto.com. Get enrolled now, because here at Go Talk To, we just don't, discuss about English as a second language. You can learn more about the things like what she just shared to us, and you can have yoga. Perhaps you can learn how to cook different dishes from Costa Rica and all the like. So visit now our website. That's once again www.gotalkto.com and enroll. Have a beautiful day.